That was very insightful. بالذات إن يعني حاجة that's a topic that's still relatable to today, even though the movie is more than 10 years old. It's interesting that it's still relatable in a different perspective from what we currently do, but it has the same focus on what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the ingredient selection and understanding how it affects the process of gastronomic experiences and how it also affects the senses and how we focus on those elements. So we're going to be relating a bit to the movie in that sense. However, focusing further on how it's the gastronomic experiences and how it's focusing on alternating with the seasonality of ingredients and the trends on that.
And also, let me tell you what gastronomy is, because it's a word we use a lot in that presentation. In simple terms, it is the art of food, and the art of food and everything related around it, from creating an experience, from the journey from the ingredient to the roots, to the inspiration behind each dish, and all the plating and the presentation of all creations. And also, gastronomy also is the practice of cooking and what goes behind each and every dish. And keeping that in mind, we'll be discussing that further through the multisensory experience.
So a little bit about ourselves. My name is Nora. I'm a person that's pretty much behind the scenes. I don't like putting my face on things, so I've been working behind the scene. I've worked my background's in advertising, specifically in graphic design and branding. However, I've done a big part of my academic work is actually focused on gastronomy in the sense of the artistic and the art direction of things. So actually I studied in Barcelona, have a master's in videography and photography in gastronomy. I worked in a 2-star Michelin restaurant in Barcelona, which ironically was called Cinc Sentits in Catalan, which means 5 senses, which they mainly focus their menu design, their experiences around that. I also worked with a pastry chef, worked with her personal brand, and another chef who works mainly with the gastronomy of the selection of ingredients. So it has a variety of background, and that's how I got to know Chef Karim, and we work together now. And he'll tell you more.
Let me give you just a very quick brief about myself. I've always been passionate about food ever since I was very young. For me, it was that notion of collecting different ingredients from different ecosystems, something from the land, from the sea, from the waters, and just making an experience out of it, or making a meal that people can, come around it and enjoy it. For me, that notion was very attractive, and that's what got me really into cooking at a young age. I started experimenting a lot and getting into the kitchen until I really knew that was my passion and that's what I wanted to pursue. So I went directly to culinary school right after high school. I trained with the Chef Alain Ducasse in Paris. He's a very famous, one of the most famous chefs. And I continued staying there and working in different restaurants. Some of them have Michelin stars, and the last one had 3 stars, which is the highest, and it's rated the #1 best restaurant in the world. It's Guy Savoy. And for me, just staying there in France as well, I discovered a lot about gastronomy, what really goes behind it, and the design. And I tried to use my time to visit some farms, go even to, even cheese farms, seeing how everything is processed and everything is and how it's really rooted in their culture. From then I went back, when I came back to Egypt, I wanted to really showcase that concept here. The first thing I did was to really discover the ingredients. For me, that's the most important thing in cooking. It is the raw ingredients. Without it, and at the end, in the kitchen, we're not magicians. There's nothing we can do. If you don't have the right product, for us, that's the main inspiration. So I stayed for a long time, just all I do, traveling, trying different ingredients, visiting some farms, different cities here to really find the right product that I can use and to turn into a gastronomic experience.
So what we mainly focus on at the experiences that we do at Privé is basically strive into presenting an unparalleled experience in the sense that we're not just serving the finest produce, but it's also the process that we do, and we take these ingredients and transform them into these unique tasting menus, tailored differently each time. So we seek to represent like these gastro experiences, and we pay attention to all the minimal details. From the setups to the selection of the cutlery, the glassware, the plateware, all the smallest details, including like the textures of the linens, like the fine porcelain, thin glassware. So like all of these like materials also help in the sense to add and put everything together in mind.
And the fourth one is that, but also around the etiquette of the service and the presentation. To really complement the gastronomic experience, we like to do a lot of stuff in front of the people, like plating up the sauce, or to really add also an element of theater to it. So we'll start by really talking about what goes behind the scenes. So like to serve that tasting menu, to serve that experience, there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, and how the inspiration process starts. We'll start by talking about.
So we usually seek a lot of like the sustainable ingredients from local farmers, meticulously chosen and handpicked, to also like reduce the carbon footprint. So a lot of like places here in Egypt are starting to do that. Abroad, it's also becoming a thing. However, it's taking its time, and it's slowly getting into the gastronomic or like the culinary culture, exactly. So today in hand, like a lot of the ingredients are imported or exported, so you have them all year round, and that actually lacks the sense of creativity, in the sense that you always have the ingredients, so you can't really create new things because you don't have an incentive to push you to, be creative. So a lot of like the creating process goes around and going back to nature and what nature has to offer you at the time and at the moment. So it's going back to the roots and seeing what season gives you what ingredients and working alongside with them and really picking them at the peak of their flavor. So like this, you use the flavor profile of each ingredient and match them accordingly. So for example, in the past months, it was autumn, now we're in winter, so a lot of like our current menus were solely based on autumn ingredients. Such as pumpkin, the specific one that you like to use, the potimarron, Geroli mushrooms, topinambur, which is also known as Jerusalem's artichoke. And now we're working with winter ingredients such as citrus and the black truffle. So a lot of people think the citrus is more summery vibe, but on contrary, it's actually in winter season. So how do you use these ingredients?
Exactly. No, as you said, it's really about going with the flow of the season. If you have an ingredient all year round, that won't really spark creativity because you'll just keep doing it over and over, and that would get even very boring in the kitchen. But for us, we really like to, like knowing that you can only get that product for, I don't know, a couple of months, a couple of weeks. Actually, it's actually very exciting. Like as much as it's maybe it saddens you when like the season ends, especially with like some of my favorite products. But at the end, you know that there are other products coming, and that really sparks a lot of creativity and also helps us match flavors. For example, like in autumn, we do a lot of flavor matches. For example, like the pumpkin you were talking about, the potimarron pumpkin. What's very unique about it is that it has a flavor similar to chestnuts. So we pair it with chestnuts, we pair it with black truffle that adds earthiness to that, and also that now we're pairing a lot the topinambur with truffle, as it's a quite winter product. And that for us as well, because at Privé what we do is we do limited edition menus. We always strive to do each dinner a new menu, obviously for all the seasons, to really bespoke everything. So that really is what we need. That inspiration from the seasonality is what we need to really spark and create new dishes each time.
So focusing on the seasonality, we also made sure that the branding also focuses on that, in the sense that we also add creativity to the experience, that we add some literature to it at the beginning. So we have these poems, and they're all describing different seasons, and even the illustrations is mainly focused on that. So a lot of the ingredients that you like to use, we made sure that they're included in the sense of to add lively to the entire process. So each season has a different mood, and we all know that weather really affects our mood, in the sense that you're in winter and you want to stay home, you want to stay warm. So a lot of the menus can also be inspired and push these emotions, in the sense that the weather will not only affect harvesting and agriculture, but it also affects your personal mood. So in order to, you know, enjoy the menu even further, like we like to call it a sixth sense, in the sense that emotion is one of the senses that we could actually play on. So the weather is actually a big factor in everything. So we like to call this play on the emotion, the ratatouille moment. In the case that you've all watched Ratatouille, you know that Anton Ego, the critic, yeah, he has like that flashback, and he thinks of like that one memory of like one plate of his childhood. So we like to play on that a lot. It's the modern take of, like, you know, classical dishes. You can reinterpret them, and you can always play around with that. So it's all about connecting with food emotionally.
And of course, going back to the sustainability thing we were talking about, it's very important for us to really source everything directly from the farms. And that's something we strive to do, is to do as well very personal connections with the suppliers. And I don't even like to call them suppliers, but rather call them partners, because as I said, without the ingredients, there's not much we can do. So what we really like to do is, like, we spend time with them, we go to the farm. That gives us also like background information on like what they go through and what the ingredients takes to come alive. We go with the fishermen I work with. We go with them on fishing trips every once in a while to really connect with nature and to really see and appreciate the product as much as possible. For example, in that case, I was in St. Catherine Mountains, and it was very interesting, like just seeing like wild foods there that just come naturally, and it's stuff that I've never have imagined that grows here. For example, that first photo, that's actually a caper berry that's grown wild in the mountains, and like I was talking to the locals there, they pickle it, they serve it with fish, and it's so interesting that we have that here. Like the one after is incredible sage from the mountains as well. We also took inspiration from some of the techniques there. They do this very incredible bread they call aish lebba. It's cooked like in coals, so like they put the actual dough in between warm coals, and it's so charred and beautiful. So really, and like all that gives us a lot of inspiration to create more dishes, to find new ingredients, to really keep things creative and alive. And another example is a citrus farm I work with. They really like grow all types of exotic, and that's like here in Banha. They grow all types of exotic citrus, such as like the Buddha hand we saw in a while, and it's because it's the season now in winter, so we're putting in a lot in the menus. As well with the fishermen, we go along with trips with them. We really source some of the best. All this is local seafood that you can get here. Even that super red shrimp, it's called carabineros. It's one of the most rare types, and it's actually caught in our Mediterranean. It's usually just exported right away, but it's some of the beautiful products we have. And like in terms of seafood, we really also take care of the sustainability, as we really like to work only with like line caught fish, so it's not net caught, and so it's not caught with a net that can destroy the ecosystem. We also work with fish that's only catch on the day, so even our clients, we only give them an option of a surprise menu, because we never know what product we'll use that day. Until that one. Yeah, I always have that 4 a.m. Call from the fisherman. I call this and that, and then we'll build the menu accordingly. I won't force something on the menu. I'll let the natural ingredients just make it come alive. And as well in
Well, I mean, the same goes with like any vegetable in the sense, or root vegetables. There's like a lot of variety that we don't really know about, that people in general don't get exposed to. So it's really exploring them to the full potential, and a lot of them are called forgotten.
Yeah, there's a movement. There's a lot of there's a like sector of vegetables they call in France légumes oubliés, or like forgotten vegetables. They're vegetables that now are treated as like royalty, like salsify, topinambour, but like 100 years ago they were like
peasant food.
Exactly. And some of the citrus and wheat as well.
So playing off on like the ingredients and really understanding the food and how to like build it all together really goes back to, I guess, what the movie was talking about, in the sense of talking about like the flavors and the senses. So like a lot of the connection of like designing a menu has to do with like understanding the ingredient and understanding how our tongues work. With like the taste receptors. So we're going a little bit into like, you know, the science of gastronomy in that sense. The tastes that we all grew up with are the basic four, which is sweetness, sourness, bitterness, and saltiness. And that's what the movie actually mentioned. So it's interesting that the movie like literally mentioned those, but did not mention umami. Umami, for those of you who perhaps heard the word but don't really understand what it is, it's the ultimate connection of the four of them, the four tastes or the four flavors all together. So umami was named by Japan, and it means the essence of deliciousness. It's the four flavors, the four tastes all together, and that's what you try to do in the menus.
Exactly.
Yeah. So take it.
So in a menu, or like if we break it down further in a dish, we try to have like different textures and we'll try to play on all these different notes and all these different flavor profiles. So for example, that dish we were building is, so you have different textures. You have the stuffed pasta, which just gives that nice chewy texture and the carrier of flavors. You have the truffle and the foie gras, which is the richness, and the truffle has like chocolate and hazelnut notes. You have the celery root, which is the puree under the pasta, which gives that nice and earthiness. You have a little bit of the balsamic, which plays on the sweet and on the sour, of course.
So that's all about like the menu development and the food and the ingredients, and moving towards the experience is how to like present it all to our guests. And it's all about like introducing different elements, in the sense that it's layering all of these elements together and building up to like this theatrical experience, and stimulating all of these senses with like the scent and the visuality of things.
So for example, like this is one of my signature dishes. It's a lamb saddle that gets smoked in hay, but instead of like, there are a lot of elements that we do in the kitchen that's very theatrical and has all the senses, but normally it's just reserved like in the back end in the kitchen. But we really like to highlight it, so we do it in the service in front of them, where we'd smoke it and we like open it, so they'll smell that roasted lamb, the hay getting smoked, so like they're immediately getting into the dish before it's actually plated in front of them.
So using the senses to create this human-centric, multi-sensory experience, and by human-centric it means involving like our guests into the experience, just like as Chef Karim has mentioned, and it's all about making it multi-sensorial. So we see with our eyes, so that's the visualization. We smell with our nose, the olfactory receptors, and then we touch with our hand, haptic sensory. Hearing with our ears, the auditory, and then taste with our tongue, which is the umami sensation. And we can't, like Muri also clearly stated, we can't really smell without, you can't really touch or really like feel everything unless it's all together, and you can't really taste without smell. It's essential.
Like the first sense, like hearing, like the movie said as well, like how they're working on like the crunch. So for example, that's some of the sourdough we serve. Just from the photo, you can hear like the crunch of the crust. And also something we like to do is we really like to do like chef table experiences. So the kitchen is open, so even that that the sound of the pots and pans, it really stimulates the palate. And of course, the second sense-seeing. At the end, we, as they say, we eat with our eyes first, and it's very true. Of course, the taste could be great and everything, but if it's not presented in a way, like the movie said, you know, that stimulates all that in the beginning, it won't really get the message there. And like something we like to do in our presentations to really highlight the product. So, for example, this is our beautiful, you know, Azazi shrimp that comes in Suez. It's very seasonal now. It comes alive in the day of the shoot, or the day of the dinner. And it has like really beautiful natural colors of the tail. Normally the tail would be just discarded, but when it's that fresh and the colors are that, you know, beautiful, we like to present it on the dish itself.
And then moving on to touch, we're all about like the textures and the materiality of things. So like for the plate selection, in the sense that we make sure that it's involved into the process itself. First thing that you do when you get served the plate, you usually touch it. So you want to like have an interesting texture, the feel of it. It really invites for this interaction with the plate. And most importantly, of course, and to use essential, is the taste, which is leading to what envelopes everything together. So moving forward with like these experiences, we also try to integrate art and design. So apart from the private gastronomic experiences, we also explore gastronomy in the art scene and putting it together with showcasing it like harmoniously. So this was an interesting project that we worked on that added like all of these layers of like the culinary arts and the fine arts.
For this example, specifically for this project, it was celebrating Ahmed Morsi, who was a famous painter of the British Museum acquisition of some of his work. So the idea, as Nora was saying, was like, you know, bringing different arts together, including culinary arts. So the main approach here in that event was taking inspiration from the art, from the origins of it, from the color, from everything, and really translating it into plates. Like, for example, we have some of the paintings that we translated directly into plates. For example, for this one, we took inspiration from the bone structure to really play on the bones. We served like a tartare inside the oxtail bone and the bone marrow as well. Also, like, you know, the subject seemed hurried a little bit, so we added a layer of hay sorbet to the dish, which should be like enjoyed before it melts. So we really took inspiration and like tried to combine different forms of art together. And that was another dish as well. Maybe you can read it. It was for us as well, taking inspiration from the colors of the painting and from the origin of the painter, who is originally from Alexandria. So I translated that dish into red mullet, which is a very traditional Alexandrian fish, and also we presented in a way that looks as if it's like swimming in the sea. And we took inspiration from the colors, such as the yellow color, to do like an Alexandrian koshari next to it. And that was one of the dishes we did in that event. And from all these dishes, to serve people, we translated them into like a nice canapé menu for everyone to enjoy. So
working with like-minded people and building like a strong team is also an essential part. So it's not just about harvesting the ingredients or selecting ingredients and designing a menu, but it's also like bringing everyone together. And it's very crucial as like everything works without, you know, nothing really works without them. So also like keeping everything in focus in the sense that we also like work together in research and development of finding new ingredients, finding new ways to present things, finding new methods to like design menus. And alongside all this, like what we're focusing on as well is like really focusing on the gastronomic experiences, but really trying to put Egyptian gastronomy on the map. And that's our goal eventually.
Thank you. If you guys have any questions, I think there's a small...
Well, according to برضه what Isra said, since you guys are talking about the multi-sensory experience, I would have expected food samples عشان نحس experience. But it's a very silly question. But is it possible إن أنا achieve الأمامي experience in one plate? So like sweets on one plate, مش a menu?
One ingredient.
One ingredient.
Wow.
You have natural ingredients that actually already have those.
Exactly.
So for example, tomato is one of them.
Is it really?
Tomato, it's sweet, it's savory, it has sometimes this bitterness when it's unripe. So
Seaweed is another.
seaweed is also another. A lot of ingredients used in Japanese.
Exactly. And some
cuisine
processed
is-
ingredients as well. Parmesan cheese, Parmigiano is full of umami senses.
So if you want a bit of a science lecture, the umami is like basically focused on an amino acid, and many of those amino acids are found naturally in ingredients. So for example, you find them in green peas. If you've eaten raw green peas, you realize it's slightly sweet. It has a bitterness,
بس يعني في أوقات مختلفة مش في نفس البايت. Like tomatoes or green peas, صح؟
but it's in the same
At
element.
the
That
end,
doesn't-
you'll get it all.
It all just adds up all together.
Do you guys have any questions?
Thank
So much.